The Red Bandana Game brings magic for Boston College, and they're going to need it if they're going to beat Kevin Jennings and SMU on Saturday.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for over 10 years. If you're looking for Boston College news, analysis, and details on your Eagles, you are in the right spot. Locked On Boston College is a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. On today's show, we're going to be breaking down the SMU game. Mitch and I are going to give predictions. Can Boston College hang with the Mustangs? And we're going to look at SMU. They have a high-powered offense led by Kevin Jennings. How good are they going to be? And as I just said, to join us to talk about it is Mitchell Wolf. Mitch, how's it going?
I'm doing well, AJ. I was spared the salvos opened at the media for Boston College this week, as I'm not attending the in-week press conferences to my location. But so I'm doing fine. I'm not down. Sun is not up. We're recording at night. But the moon is up. It's one of the super moons, apparently, which is fun.
But I think everyone wants to know.
What's up, Trevor?
How you doing? How you doing?
So just so y'all know, I found the soundboard on my app, and I'm going to be going crazy with this for the next couple of weeks because we're 1-8. And we're going to have some fun with this show. I'm going to make you guys smile with 3 games left before we get to the end of this. So, all right. But we're going to talk about this game because honestly, it feels the vibes are a little different. I don't know what it is. It feels just, I don't know, with the energy's there. We've seen this team not quit. Let's talk about SMU. I talked about it yesterday with Locked On SMU. You know, he takes it from his perspective. What have you seen from the Mustangs?
I think this is not SMU is a tough team to pin down because they're not the team that BC has faced the last few years. They've done a bit of transitioning in terms of really on both sides of the ball, but they're still playing really well. And if you look at their losses, they lost in double overtime, I think, to Baylor. They lost decently. They lost by, I think, 11 to TCU. So that's decently close. It was a shootout. And then they lost to Wake in overtime in a it was a 1-point loss. It was a weird game. So they're still playing really well. They just have these kind of hiccups where things don't go their way. And if you look at their stats, they're pretty well rounded. Maybe they don't run the ball as well as you would want, which is, I think it's more in the running backs. You know, they lose Brashard Smith, the NFL. He was a really good running back last year, obviously torched BC a good bit. But schematically, you know, Kevin Jennings is obviously the name to know as the quarterback, but he is not throwing the ball downfield as much this year. They're really throwing the ball short. It's basically 48.9% of their passes are 5 yards or fewer past line of scrimmage. So a lot of throws behind line of scrimmage, a lot of screens, and that's really increased since they started ACC play. So they've changed that. They throw deep, but they don't throw intermediate a lot. And part of that is because with Jennings, it's basically either the ball is coming out immediately or he's holding on to it forever, running around and finding somebody deep, usually for an explosive play. So that works for them. And he's a very good athlete. He's a good thrower. He's going to be frustrating because of that, but he also that can lead to some bad sacks for him because he sometimes is a little bit oblivious in the pocket. And there are times where he makes throws that he just can't make. And there'll be difficult throws, but it's like, hey, that's probably not one you should be trying. So obviously the biggest thing is that SMU has speed on the outside. That's something BC has not been able to handle pretty much all year. So, and especially with their cornerback room depleted as it is, depending on how you read the injury report, you know, they've been pretty cavalier with omissions, I would say, of players who are hurt, and then they're suddenly not on the injury report, but then they're back on it again the next day. So we'll have to see how that goes. So I really am struggling to trust BC's defense against this offense. And then on the other side of the ball, you know, with the issues on BC's offensive line, they are not really well equipped to handle SMU. And SMU, you know, gets all this pub for the offense, but really every year they play, the BC has played them. It's their defense that's really the best side of the ball, which is really impressive. This year they're allowing a lot of passing yards, but I think that's by design, or it's, you know, game script. They're in these shootouts. They're playing off coverage. They're, you know, trying to just basically keep everything in front of them. So they're allowing a ton of passing yards. I think it's like the most in the Power 4. But if you look at their more advanced stats, you see that they're pretty good at getting teams off the field. And they're really good in the red zone. They have the 6th best defensive red zone efficiency in the FBS and the best in goal to go situations. They only allow a touchdown on 33% of goal to go possessions, which is very impressive. And they do it by doing the same type of coverage, middle of field close, so cover 3, cover 1, and they don't blitz a lot. And they're able to get home with a decent amount of pressure. Their sacks can be a little streaky. 14 of their 25 sacks have come against an FCS opponent, Missouri State, who just jumped up from FCS, and Stanford, who I think is tied for the 10th most sacks allowed this year. So they were great in those games, but then the other ones, it's been not as productive, and their pressure rate isn't super high. So their run defense is really good, which that's the problem for BC is they need to run the ball these games close, but if they can't, then they're just going to be in 2nd and 8, 3rd and 9 all the time, and then they're going to have to throw anyways. So it's a pretty rough matchup for BC on paper, and when you get between the whistles or between the lines. But if you look at some of these obviously intangible factors that come with the Red Bandana game, you say, okay, like there's maybe a path for BC here if they play the right way, have some breaks go their way, and are generally the more disciplined team, I would say.
Now, talk about what floored me, and I said this on yesterday's show, is that they have a wide receiver named Jordan Hudson. I could not
with an A.
Yep.
Jordan.
Yes. But anyways, I thought they had a lot of good weapons last year. You mentioned the running backs, Rashard Smith. Who else do they have this year that we should be watching for?
So Hudson's the one receiver. He missed some time, but in the last early in the season, but he's back, and he, even besides missing time, he's basically leading the team in all receiving categories, even though the other receivers have played in every game. So he's the one. Romello Brinson is the other. Both these guys have been on SMU for the last 2 years, so they played against BC both times. Hudson has been more consistently productive. He had a pretty good game, touchdown last year, 99 yards. He's a very good receiver, very well-rounded. The slot receiver is Ymir Knight, who's a transfer out of James Madison, also a very good punt returner for them. For James Madison, I need to look up whether he's returning punts for SMU, but he is a kind of your typical slot receiver, short, shifty, explosive, what have you. And then they use their tight ends a lot, and they're a very tight end heavy offense this year. They're basically split down the middle between 11 and 12 personnel. RJ Maryland is the big name that people know because he was originally a BC commit, then flipped to SMU, and he's been decently productive there. I honestly think, last year he missed half the year due to injury, but I think a lot of his production comes against lesser defenses, which, to be fair, that's pretty much what BC is this year. But he has racked up a lot of production against non-Power 5 team or Power 4 teams. So the other tight end, Matthew Hibner, was a transfer from Michigan last year. He's their blocking tight end, so he plays a lot more. He's just not used as much as a receiver. But his production is also inconsistent, but he can really go because teams usually forget about him. The running backs, they have a committee. The name to know is, so TJ Harden is their leading rusher by a lot in terms of carries. The name to know is Chris Johnson Jr. Yes, that Chris Johnson from the Tennessee Titans, of Gus Johnson's. He's got get away from the cop speed back when NFL commentary was fun. But yeah, so he's obviously, the name fits the bill. He's an explosive threat who can score from anywhere. So it's again, very well-rounded offense that can hurt you a lot of ways. They're not running the ball super well as of late. They've had some offensive line issues, injuries and such, just not guys getting in the right place. So that might be something considering how BC is doing decently well against defending the run, aside from explosive plays, on a down basis, they've been a little better. So that's something to keep an eye on. But again, stopping the pass, slowing down SMU's explosiveness is going to be the big thing for BC's defense in this game.
All right, in a moment, can Boston College actually hang with SMU and have a chance in this game? Mitch and I will give our thoughts on that in just a moment. It's almost the weekend, time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streak, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For Boston College, Reed Harris delivered in a big way. He had a big touchdown catch in the end zone for the BC against Notre Dame. It didn't really matter in the end, but it still was a great play. When the pressure was on, Harris came through, no hesitation and no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, this performance wasn't a fluke. Reed Harris is on a streak. And just like Reed Harris delivered for the Boston College Eagles, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it all up season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. All right. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black here. Thank you all who have made Locked On Boston College your first listen every day. And all of you who are everydayers out there, that have made Locked On Boston College part of your daily routine. Thank you so much. We do appreciate helping our channel grow. And if you want to help our channel grow, hit that like and subscribe on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. So BC is 1-1 against SMU over the last 2 years. Obviously, they beat them in the Fenway Bowl. Kevin Jennings' first game. Was that his first game?
No, he started in the AAC championship game, and they actually won the
Preston
NCAA
Stone
that year. Yes, Preston Stone, now the starter at Northwestern. Also, Kevin Jennings' backup is Tyler Van Dyke.
Wow.
People forget that. I don't think Van Dyke he hasn't taken a drop back this year.
We're gonna see him on Saturday, aren't we?
Maybe.
But what does Boston College need to do to hang in with the SMU? I'm assuming it's been what they've done the last 2 weeks. Long, sustained drives where you keep SMU on the sideline.
So I'm glad you said that, because that's what I thought initially. Because that makes sense. You want to run the ball, kill the clock, keep SMU's offense on the sideline. And I think if they can do that, they should. But because of how good SMU is against the run and how much in flux BC's offensive line is, Jude Bowery could be out. Kevin Klein is probably out. They're moving people at guard and center. We don't really know who's starting there. Logan Taylor might have to play tackle again. So that's a big problem. And it was probably against Notre Dame, who has a very good run defense. SMU's is probably about the same in terms of their effectiveness. So I'm thinking that they actually go the other way. And I think you kind of need to pass to open up the run in this game, because if you're running and you're only getting 1 or 2 yards and you're still behind the sticks and then you need to throw, then you need to throw anyways. And you're going to need to throw in this game to keep up with SMU. Like, no matter what, at some point you're going to have to throw the ball, unless your defense just comes out and has a banger of a game, which that's very unlikely for me. So I think with SMU, you look at their defense, it's a cover 3, very heavy defense. It's a lot of what they do. They don't blitz a lot, so it's going to be tough. But I think if you can get the quick passing game going, because they play so much top down, they want to keep everything in front of them. You can find holes in the zones throwing quickly. That also helps protect the quarterback, protect the offensive line. You get rid of the ball quickly. The offensive line isn't going to allow sacks. Obviously, guys need to catch the ball, need to be accurate. But I think you need to kind of take a bit of a risk here, because if you don't, you're probably just going to die a slower death. So you need to take the initiative a bit. I think I think that if they load up, if they put an extra offensive lineman out there, if they put 2 or 3 tight ends out there, SMU is going to match that with their base personnel, and they're going to stop the run. They are 2 defensive tackles. Their nose tackle is Jeffrey Mba, who's a massive nose tackle. He's playing very well. Their other defensive tackle, Terry Webb, is a transfer from Texas State. Both really good players. They might be getting Cameron Robertson back, who's their best edge rusher. He's missed the last 2 or 3 games due to injury. So they've got a good defensive front. And if they're owning line of scrimmage, even when you have heavier personnel out there, then they're going to be able to lighten the personnel and stop you from passing too. So I think you start off the game by passing. It's risky, but you're going to have to do it to try to get something. So you can move the ball that way. And then once the defense has to respect the pass, then you might be able to run the ball later on. It's not exactly the BC strategy. I think it's going to be unorthodox, and again, it might not work, but I think I just foresee them running the ball, and it'll just be them banging their head against a wall to not really do anything. So I'm kind of flipping the script here a little bit, just because I think that kind of plays into SMU's hands almost.
And do they have a chance of slowing Kevin Jennings down with what they have?
I think it depends on who is playing, because as we noted on the injury report on Thursday, Amari Jackson and Ashton Cunningham were not listed. Now, again, they've done this before, and then guys show up the next day. So by the time you're listening to this, they might have updated it. They might update it Friday night and say, oh, now these guys are injured because they've been injured the whole year. So if Amari Jackson and Ashton Cunningham are back, it's like, okay, this gets interesting, because those guys are, Jackson's a good player. Again, he hasn't played in a while, but he's better than a lot of the guys that they've been trotting out there the last few weeks. That also allows you to maybe move Carter Davis back to free safety, which is going to be huge in this game, because from a defense perspective, I'm BC. I'm not doing what they did the last 2 weeks, which is a lot of cover 0 blitzing. I think that you got to throw that out, because you couldn't get pressure against Notre Dame's offensive line. You did a little against Louisville, but you had to blitz, and it still wasn't that consistent. So I think you play more conservative, you play more zone. Again, do what SMU does, basically just keep everything in front of you. Don't allow the explosive plays, because the explosive plays have been what of killing this team all year. If you look at Notre Dame, UConn, Clemson, Pitt, it's passing.
Stanford, Cal.
Well, that's passing. And then if you look at the other ones, or Cal's passing, and then running, it's Michigan State, Louisville, and Stanford. So yep. I'm because SMU doesn't run the ball exceptionally well. I think you can kind of let them do that. Like if they want to run the ball, that's fine. Just because I think, again, like we've seen this run defense able to be successful on a down-to-down basis, and none of the running backs are Jeremiah Love. Again, Chris Johnson Jr. is explosive at times, but Jeremiah Love's a different animal. And TJ Harden, their main running back, is solid, but he doesn't have that kind of speed. So I would kind of let them run the ball just because you cannot let yourself get killed by these explosive passes where they're going to just throw it over your head and then it's over. You got to keep everything in front of you. You got to get guys back. And there's different ways you can do that with all types of coverages. It's just a matter of executing it properly. So you can play cover 3, but you can get a lot of depth when you drop. You could play cover 4, but you got to make sure you drop. Same with cover 2, basically. You just got to have good zone depths and good zone awareness, which is tough when you're playing with some younger and experienced players, especially if they have more Omarion Davis and Marcus Upton snaps. But maybe if you play your standard safeties, it might work a little better. But I am thinking about using Omar Thornton as like a QB spy just because he's so fast and instinctive. That's something that can react well to Jennings, because I don't think Davion Crouch, let alone Owen McGowan, can spy Jennings and keep him contained. Omar Thornton might be able to do it. And plus, because of how much of a penchant he has for delivering big hits, you might be able to jar the ball loose, because Jennings has a bit of a fumbling issue just because he's a bit of a smaller, skinnier quarterback. So if Omar Thornton can lay down the hit stick a few times, you might be able to get the ball out and get a turnover, which would be huge.
Definitely sounds that way. Now, looking at this game, you're looking at a BC team that's 1-8. And this week we saw, I talked about it, obviously everyone's talking about it, how fired up Bill O'Brien is. How energized do you think BC is going to be coming out for this game with it being Red Bandana? And KP Price himself said it today that he treats SMU like a rival, that they feel like this is like a big game for them.
Yeah, the Vineyard Vines, Patagonia, do you know who my father is bowl.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, I think this is it is kind of an unexpectedly fun rivalry because of how close these games have been, how hotly contested they've been. I think the Red Bandana thing, like, it just always, I mean, well, I was looking at the game's history, and there are a few clunkers in there, but if you look at the teams they played, it was usually like Clemson at the height of their powers, Notre Dame at the height of their powers. It's like, well, most teams aren't beating them anyway. So, but you have seen it come through in the past where it does elevate this team. They do hang with teams that are a lot more talented than them. Even if they don't win, they make it close and they cover the spread. So I think that's a big thing. This team has not lost games last 2 weeks for lack of effort. And even the games that they've lost by a lot, I wouldn't say it's necessarily lack of effort. Just the other team has more talent and they got outcoached sometimes. I'll admit that. But a lot of the times you're not seeing this, like even the Clemson game, there were times late in that game where they were down by multiple scores where they were playing hard, showing effort. So and I think that's kind of what O'Brien was trying to say, is that, like, because that's what people have been asking him all season. It's like, how do you, like, what's your message to the fans? It's like, and he said it every week, like, we're working hard, we're fighting. Like, we obviously don't want to be where we are right now in terms of our record. We understand that. We would change it if we could, but we can't. The only thing we can do is work harder, try to be better. And that's what he's been saying all season. And that's probably why he got mad, because he's tired of saying the same thing over and over again. So, and I think that, and again, I think we've seen that in the games the last few weeks. So I'm sure they're going to come out. I'll talk about this as predictions, but I think those kind of intangible factors do lean BC's way a bit, but we'll talk about that after the break.
All right. In a moment, we're going to give our predictions. Will either of us pick BC to win? I'll explain what I'm picking, and Mitch will decide what he has to say. And we'll get into that in just a moment.
What's up, Trevor? How you doing?
When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? Supply House has a next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. So join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a detailed support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. This is Locked On Boston College, wrapping things up here with Mitchell Wolf of Eagle Insider. We're giving our last discussion here on SMU. 2 more games after this one. BC sits at 1-8. Obviously, Not where BC should be, but this is where it ended up. So let's talk about predictions. I will give mine since I already kind of gave it yesterday. When I do the crossover, sometimes I have to give my own prediction. So I said, I think we're seeing kind of a trend of where BC is at right now, where I don't expect them to get blown out. I don't think they're going to lose big in this game. I actually think it's going to kind of follow the pattern we saw with Notre Dame, where BC hangs with SMU for most of the game. They're down by 3, maybe later in the third quarter or something like that, and then they let up a garbage time touchdown. So I think they're going to be competitive. Call it the Red Bandana Magic, call it whatever you want, but I have them losing this one 31-21.
Okay, we're pretty much in the same boat. I think you're right on the total, and I know the line is 10.5, so you're right there. So the intangible factors I want to talk about in this game, besides the obviously Red Bandana thing, is SMU just beat Miami. Great win. It's probably the biggest win for the program since the 1980s, given that you knock off was Miami top 10 at the time. You knock off a highly ranked team at home in overtime. Huge win. I saw it when I was looking for pictures for one of my articles. I was looking on Getty Images, and there was a lot of pictures with George W. Bush and Michael Irvin, and it had W doing the U thing. It was very funny. It was very funny visual. But anyway, so SMU's coming off that. Then they have to come up to Boston to play a noon game against a team that's kind of a rival, but it's a long trip. It's going to be an early kick. They're already favored by a lot. They're going to be feeling good. I feel like this is a big letdown spot for SMU. Again, it's quote unquote rivalry, but I think they're gonna be like, okay, like we beat Miami, like we got the big thing. We're still doing okay, and they might overlook BC because BC is pretty bad. So I think that will play a role. And watching SMU in games, they're not undisciplined, but they're decent. They have some issues with penalties, not a ton. Like it's kind of normal, but like they commit penalties for sure. And they have a lot of drops. Kevin Jennings is tied for the 18th most drops. I think I'm gonna have to look that up. But that's a problem. And I believe they have some kicking issues that I've heard about. Probably not to the degree that Notre Dame had them last week. But that could be a variable in a close game where if the other team is missing extra points or can't make field goals, that changes the math and changes.
We would never know what that feels like.
No, I wouldn't even know how to feel about that. So with that in mind, I'm still not picking BC to win. They need to prove to me that they can win a game before I can confidently pick them to do so. But I'm in a similar boat. I'm going a little more low scoring. I'm going to say 27-20. Again, I totally agree with you. I think BC can keep this close, but at the end of the day, there's probably going to be a few too many explosive plays that they let up just because they're probably still so undermanned. And I think SMU can exploit their issues on defense because they don't really have a pass rush and they don't have the guys in the secondary to hang with. So SMU is their field goals are 12 of 20, 60%, which is tied for 124th in FBS. So that's quite bad. It's tied with Wisconsin for the worst field goal percentage in the Power 4.
Oh wow. Okay.
And they've missed 2 extra points. So not a big thing, but something to keep in mind. So basically, if you're looking at their field goal percentage, once they get beyond 40 yards, it's a problem because they're 6 of 7 and for 40 or shorter, and 7 of 16 40 and longer.
Wow.
So something to keep in mind. Again, not saying BC is going to win. I think, like you said, they'll be competitive. They'll play hard. It's a Red Bandana game. Stuff can happen. I think BC covers in this one, but I will say FanDuel make every moment more. BC's first half spread plus 6.5 at plus 106 when I took it. So, or something to look into there. That's some nice little odds there.
Mitch gets that joy of being able to do that because he's not in Massachusetts, unlike myself. So, but I'm wondering, both of us have done silly stuff now on the show. We had Skeleton Man last week. You've dressed up as a Joker. Will we be making a trip to Spirit Halloween to buy, get a post-Halloween.
By the time this game is over, the Spirit Halloweens are going to be gone. They're already moved. They're already packed up. It's over.
Okay. I was like, maybe I could get a good deal on doing something that would be interesting if BC wins.
No,
but
they're already gone. They're already back into being a home goods.
Amazon. I don't know if I could get it in a day, but
yeah, that'd be tough.
all right. Well, we'll figure something out if they win. But I think it'll be fun. If you're watching along, I will be in the press box with Mike Sidley again on Saturday. I will be doing a live show after the game from the press box. You never know who will probably pop their head in the background. If you know any of the BC media, they love to do that. Check that out on YouTube. And Mitch, where can people find your work?
You can find me at Mitchell T. Wolf, WOLFE on Twitter. Check out my work at Eagle Insider. The match report and 3-week preview will probably be out by the time you're listening to this on Friday. So you'll be able to check out a lot of stats, film clips for SMU, and then my other predictions for this game. Talk a little bit more about the matchups that'll decide this one. And yeah, that's where you can find my stuff.
And also, if you did not check it out, I also recorded a mini episode on BC's basketball's win over the Citadel on Thursday night. You can check that out. It's like a 10, 12-minute episode, and that'll be up on YouTube as well. So make sure you listen to that if you want to hear about BC winning a basketball game by almost 30 points. So that's pretty cool. All right, check me out on Twitter at AJBlack247, all the social medias, including TikTok. Check me out there, and we'll see you again on Saturday for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.